Spraying a field with anything can make it look really clean. You get rid of the weeds that way, but it doesn't fix the problem why the weeds were there in the first place. And that's the part that most people never talk about. We farm organically, so we don't use any kind of sprays or anything like that, but it's not because we think that anybody else is wrong. It's because it forced us to look a little deeper and to explain why things are the way that they are. Organic farming doesn't remove the problem. It just exposes what they actually are. Here's why I can confidently say that glyphosate, well, and pretty much any herbicide, it doesn't work. And that's because they do not fix the root cause of the problem. You see, weeds are actually a symptom of a problem, and weeds only grow in places where there is actually a very specific problem. The weed is there to actually fix it. And as the soil gets better, those weeds go away. And so that begs the question that why are we even spraying in the first place? And I hear it all the time. We don't want to spray. I hear that, but then it's like, but you still are. And you're not fixing the broken system that forces you to spray. Where we don't have that opportunity in organics, we have to do something different. So it forces us to look deeper. And because we're looking deeper, we've uncovered some ugly truths. That being that weed killer in general is just a money grab. It's funny how nature works, because if you guys look in the world, anything usually bare, first off, is kind of where you find weeds. Driveways, fence lines, areas where soil is bare, you'll find weeds. And it's not because the weed is the only thing there, or you have weed seeds in your soil. Like, those are some of the biggest fallacies that we could talk about on this topic. There's weed seeds everywhere, okay? Just get that out of your mind. The idea here is that the weeds are there for a reason. Weeds are the lower version of plants, right? So they are what is there to actually start the process of Mother Nature healing herself. Depending on the kind of weed that you have there, it directly correlates to an issue in the soil. Now, here's the problem why spraying doesn't work. Because if you systemically spray weeds year after year after year after year, you never fix the root cause of the problem that they are there to try to fix in the first place. And if you systemically spray weeds over and over again, they become resistant to those herbicides that you're using to spray them. So then you have to put on a higher dose, a bigger rate, multiple herbicide passes, multiple types of herbicide. Can you see how this adds up to more and more stuff and more money that you spend on your farm without ever fixing the core problem? And that is absolutely infuriating. That is a direct example of how a farmer is getting taken advantage of by a corporate company somewhere. Weed killer only works in the short term and only in the visual spectrum. It removes what you can visually see, that ugly weed out in your field, in your lawn, or what have you. But it doesn't fix the root cause of the problem. And that's the real issue here. And if that root cause isn't fixed and conditions stay the same, those weeds come back year after year after year, or they're replaced by a weed that's even worse, because every time you spray, you nuke the biology in the soil and make the soil condition even worse. Spraying only treats symptoms of the problem. Soil dysfunction is the actual disease that we need to fix, and we're not even treating it. If spraying actually worked, and it fixed the problem, you wouldn't have to go out and systemically spray the same weeds over and over and over again. There has to be a point where we get to and say, look, this isn't working, we need to change. Instead of adding more, you need to dig in a little bit and figure out why. Why is that specific weed there? What is it telling me? And you can easily find this information. There's a link in the description for a book that will tell you the exact reason why a weed is where it's at. And there are 800 most common weeds that you can find in a crop field. Go to that book, buy that book, learn that book. It will help you accelerate so much in your farming journey. Look, we farm organically, so we're taking about the weeds a little bit differently than a typical conventional farm would, because conventional farms do, they spray them. they're taken care of, right? Although it never fixes the problem, it gets rid of that symptom. Now for us, weeds can still drag yield and cost us money, so we have to consider them and take care of them, but we're going about it a little bit different way. First off, we are looking at every weed that we see, we're noting that weed, and we are trying to figure out why that weed is there. Whether it's a big taprooted plant that shows compaction, whether it's morning glory shorting calcium deficiency, whether it's a group of weeds pointing toward the actual problem, just like a web of this information that is giving us exactly what issues we have. And then we are using smart mineral nutrition, biological inputs, and tactful tillage to help create the best soil environment we possibly can every time that we are applying or doing or planting or what have you, to give it the optimal ability to grow. What we are going to be integrating now is we're using smart mineral nutrition. We're going to be adding cover crops. We're going to be adding all of these small little nuanced things to help us get the soil in a condition where weeds don't need to grow because it's not in dysfunction. And once it's not in dysfunction and we have our crops planted into it, we'll have a lot less weed pressure. And we've seen this earlier this year in our corn rows, where our soil is pretty good on the farm, and we used our smart mineral nutrition, one cultivation pass with additional mineral nutrition. The rows of our cornfields were very, very clean, and we were really impressed with it. Where we had some problems and we had some fields with dysfunction, we saw a lot more weed pressure, and that was very obvious to us, especially compaction and lack of soluble calcium. Those two stuck out in one field like a glowing sign that you see in Las Vegas of a problem that we need to fix. When soil condition improves, weeds lose their job and they go away. Spraying weeds is a systemic cycle of treating symptoms instead of the core problem. And it's just a money grab. And it goes much further than just a spray. When you look at fertilizers, you look at pesticides, herbicides, and your GMO seeds, all of those things combined are creating a system in which we have to rely on spraying just to earn a dollar. But as we spray over time, we have to add more, costing farmers more money and making the corporations more money. So guess what? We as farmers are struggling more and more because we are not treating the root cause. And that's what this whole video is about. Spraying doesn't work because it doesn't fix the root cause. It only treats that symptom. Spraying weeds is a tool, and I'm not saying it should go anywhere, but I am saying that farmers should take steps to treat the actual issue, which is soil dysfunction, instead of treating the symptoms all the time with weeds, because not only does spraying weeds not treat that core problem, but it also sets back the soil health and sets back the soil condition, making the process even longer and even harder to recover from. At the end of the day, if you don't fix the soil, you'll be fighting weeds forever. If you like real farm conversations like this, stick around. God bless. We'll see you next time on American Beef Ranch.